Kia ora. Welcome everyone to the first 2026 Women Revolutionizing Housing Online Networking, Learning, and Advancing Gathering. I'll start with an opening karakia. I'm going to read it. Ko te pai tawhiti whaia ki a tata. Ko te pai tata whakamaua ki a tina. Tina, tina, huie, taikie. That is, seek out the distant horizons so that they may be brought closer. Hold fast to what is near so it becomes secure and enduring. Draw together, affirmed. And that spoke to me about the dreams that we have for housing or our communities being the distant horizons. But together, as we draw together as a network, we are bringing those dreams even closer into reality. Hold fast to what is near, which is our network and each other. And so it becomes secure and enduring. That was a good way to start us off. Thank you again very much for coming. The purpose of the network is for women who are in some way advancing housing to be able to learn together, share resources and ideas. And if a woman has a project that would benefit from collective wisdom, to have a space to share about that project and get input from other women so that we're not only talking about good ideas, we're actually advancing them. So these can take root and women feel like they're supported, they're not alone in their audacious dreams for how housing can be done differently. And there's a myriad of ways that housing can be done differently. And we're also reinforcing in ourselves what we hold is possible. I just interviewed a woman named Lyndall Paris, who is the visioner and founder of Narara Eco Village outside of Sydney, Australia. She had this vision since she was 50, and she's now 76. She's now living in the community with her family. She's been in the community for about 8 years now. It did take that long for her to go from starting to take some action when she was around 50 through at least a decade and a bit till that actually in 2012 is when they bought the property. So just to say that dreams do come true. And one of Lyndall's messages today was that sometimes they do take longer than one thinks. And she had some wise words to say about that. Hopefully, you all are subscribed to the Homefulness Show, which is on podcast as well as on the Common Ground YouTube channel, where I interview visionaries and leaders of alternative housing models, share their stories, and always looking for guests as well. So that's the Homefulness Show, a podcast which you can find on any podcast app, Spotify or Apple or iHeartRadio, etc. I just wanted to get a feel for who's in the room with us. Can I ask, who is the person with the camera off? Morris Drake. That's from Julia West. Yes, it would be fantastic since we're networking. I understand this is over lunch. I see Tonya is eating lunch. That's absolutely fine because I've held this over lunch for the purpose of multitasking. If you're eating and you don't want us to see you eating, then that's fine. Keep your camera off, but we don't mind. Because we are networking with each other, it is nice eventually to see your face. So that would be fantastic to and then I guess keep yourselves muted just for this little bit of time, but it's going to be very interactive. Unless you've got something noisy in the background, you can unmute yourself as well. So I just thought I'd like to start out just a general show of who's in the room. Who, if you could just raise your hand, if you have attended one of the 3 WHOIs, the Women Revolutionizing in 2021, 23, or 25. If you could put your hand up if you've attended one of those. Okay, I've got about half in the room. If you can raise your hand if you are in the North Island. Okay, about half of you again. Anyone outside of New Zealand who's joined us today? No, okay, because we have sometimes women from Australia or other parts of the world joining us who is actively either involved in a concept or a project that's starting to move forward when it comes to housing community, who's actively involved in progressing a concept. Okay, we've got this from Freya, Julia. Did you raise? Yes, Tanya. And Jackie, of course, you are, because you're our mastermind guest today. So that's your project we're going to be looking to help you with. A lot of us, I think, are in the concept stage. So, but advancing it means you're nurturing it. It's more than just a one off thought. You're actually looking at what's going to move this thing to the next stage. We've got Jackie, our mastermind guest today. She's got a concept that we'll open up to listen to shortly. If you could just unmute yourselves, if you put your hand forward, give us in 1 minute, the folks who raised their hand about a concept, tell us in 1 minute what's your concept. It would be really interesting to hear, even if you've got the title for it, give us an idea. Freya, would you like to share what's your
Sure.
this?
Yeah, sure. My this is I live in Golden Bay, Mohua, and there's the Mohua Affordable Housing Trust here who built 9 affordable homes. I met with one of their founders last week, Chris Bennett. He's
Mhm.
pretty, yeah, energetic man with a good mind. I drive through Golden Bay a lot and see empty holiday homes with spare land. With this new granny flat rule, I see an opening for houses for older women, not granny flats, but
Mm.
homes for
Mhm.
matriarchs. I'm not quite sure what the term would be, but something about long-term lease, small portion of holiday homeland. I see there's a need and I'm keen to action that somehow. I'm struggling to get it from my head onto any sort of paper, but I need to find the people who can help me with that.
Maybe you need to be our next mastermind person, because that's where we take a good idea and get some strategic questions to get you thinking, or who you might be able to contact next. I do know in America, there is a movement they call it the ADU. I think that's accessory dwelling unit that's taking off in America for that same purpose of the sort of infill spaces and policy that allows that to be easier for people. So yeah, you might learn something from that ADU space in America. But yeah, Chris is a great resource given that he's been doing this for years. Thanks, Freya, for sharing. Tonya, can you give us a synopsis in 1 minute of your basic idea?
Kia ora. Several pots on the boil. There's a commercial mixed-use development site that's tired and in need of some thinking about what the future is. It's family owned, it's a legacy inheritance, and it's research at the moment around urban models for what that might be. Some similar overlaps with Freya because I've got other projects facilitating and helping older single ladies transition through housing, and what that penultimate move may be for them, and looking at the considerations of the type of accommodation and housing that they're looking at, and that's providing me with a lot of insights into what a bigger version of that might be. So some really interesting conversations in and around security and connectivity and community in the framework of individual tenure and land ownership.
It all starts from a basic idea and just keeps getting refined, I guess, according to what you find out as you go. On that older woman front, there is a group in Australia, in Queensland, that contracted me to work with them a year and a half ago called the Housing Older Women Movement. They have a website that has been going for a while. Their primary aim is advocacy and education to get these models that serve older women, that are older women led, that they want to live in, not that just a not-for-profit feels would be suitable. They are driving this from the older women's perspective, and they're really advancing a lot there. I do an interview on the Homefulness show with the Housing Older Women movement about the general issues surrounding housing for older women. They've just gotten sort of, I guess they've broken ground on that project. It's the pilot. It's basically making use of a planning policy where 5 women can come together. It's like a boarding house, but each one has their own it's sort of like their own living space, but where they share a common living room, sharing with friends. So there's an episode on that and how that project works. They've got a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a lounge. So it's like little apartments off of one area. So that's the sharing with friends model. That's cool to hear. Jackie will save yours till when we do the mastermind. Who else has a project? I saw 1 or 2 other hands. Melanie, do you want to just share in a minute about your project?
I've got a farm in the Hawke's Bay and I want to start a healing centre and a sustainable village. I'm thinking more for women, but not anti-men at all, but it has to be safe men. For, an integration centre really, I guess. I bought the farm almost 6 years ago. It's been in that space for a little while, so it sort of keeps on morphing into new ideas. But I've bought the land. And I guess I'm looking for maybe investors. Obviously, I can't build Rome on my own.
Awesome. Well, you've come to the right place. Thank you,
Beautiful
Melanie.
to see you.
Yeah. Was there anyone else who put their hand up about a concept they're actively working on? Yes, Julia.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm recently new in Nelson and first time on this network. I have been doing some voluntary work at the Nelson Women's Centre, and they have recently received funding from Nelson Council to set up a pilot startup project to look at housing navigation pathways for vulnerable women. And that doesn't solve the need for actual housing, but it's looking at the different pathways and providers around. We have a lot of people coming into the Women's Centre through social work and counselling, and one of their primary needs is housing. Some with young children or pregnant as well. So the project hasn't been signed off, but I think I'm allowed to talk about it. The startup phase will be part-time for the next 3 months. We're looking at hiring someone to do the frontline work of housing navigation and supporting the women that come to us to find the housing that they need, which is safe, obviously. Yeah, and there's other things in the pipeline, but the great thing is that Nelson Council is providing the funding for it, so it's great.
Yay, that's fantastic. Yeah, I remember when they put a call out for proposals for innovative ways of addressing housing in our regions. Well, I'll get with you on that, Julia, since I've been a member of the Vulnerable Housing Network for a few years now. And I'm so glad to hear that.
I have a question around that,
yeah.
Julia. Do you think because it's being done through council that is going to become a resource, and the front end investigation is going to be something that could become information in the public domain to be shared because it's council funded?
I would hope so. As I said, I'm new to Nelson, but I'm amazed at how strong the community networks are here as I'm learning the ropes of how the town operates. I went into the Citizens Advice Bureau before Christmas and asked for any information they had on housing. They had the most phenomenal, fantastic resources. A lot of the information that I was going to go and seek out is already documented and available. I would hope that it would stay in the public domain. And we just have to be aware of safety issues for women.
But broad principles and strategies, yeah.
But the strategies and setting up those pathways, I think, absolutely to be shared. And Tonya, just on that note, whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Auckland.
Oh, you're in Auckland. Okay, cool.
And just to say also, Julia, that one of the women in the network who couldn't come today did her master's thesis to create a tool. It's a website with an app, which is a navigation tool. So it takes all the information about a person, where they are at the moment and what they aspire to, what they would ideally like, and it creates a roadmap. And then not only a roadmap, but then has a lot of resources of, okay, you're here, here's the resources available to you for this stage, and then here's the next stage. So she's piloting it. She's given me access for me to sort of walk myself through testing it out. But hopefully that tool, we're trying to figure out as a network how we can advance her with that tool to get it more, for her to just work out the finer details of the tool. So yeah, that could go hand in hand somehow.
Fantastic.
So that's great to know. You said navigation, hers is navigation. Why not see if there's something within that tool that could be useful. But I don't want to speak on Megan's behalf, but she'll see this recording and I'll let her know about that project as well. Was there somebody else who has a concept that they're advancing, even if it's just a really exciting idea? Okay, well, I'll share an idea that I've become really excited about. It's something that has been an idea for me for years, but now I think it's time to put the rubber to the road on this idea. I live in a tiny home myself, and it's really difficult to find a secure place to put it, an affordable place, and a connected community. Those three things are missing for folks who have turned to tiny homes because of the issues, but now find themselves trapped in this other set of issues. I'd like to solve the problem for folks who already have a tiny home or who are having one built, but lack the money to buy land, get a mortgage, or have a secure place. I'm working on a concept of a pilot of a tiny home co-housing eco neighborhood. And ideally, for me, it would be sitting on a community land trust, which is a not-for-profit that stewards land in perpetuity for affordable housing. And in this case, it would be also ecological stewardship. So that would be the two overlays of probably a cooperative residential structure on top of a not-for-profit. Just really early stages. I'm going to be having some meetings to the public to throw out the idea and get initial input and feedback on it. I'm in the Nelson, Tasman, between Nelson and Motueka. So that's where I'll be having these series of to the public, just general concept, and take it from there. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm feeling energized. The other project I'm working on, and I thank you, Coralie, for already feeding back on that, is a opportunity for women in this space to learn a little bit about property development, the fundamentals, so we feel like we understand the concepts and that we can be a player, even if it's just taking our own idea and then building a team around that idea and understanding the realities of it financially, legally, planning, etc. So the fundamentals. And then a second part of that would be around the unconventional or alternative ways of doing housing that have been done before that we can learn from, and looking at putting this as a call for proposals for service providers that are already offering such a thing, but tailored to this group of women, and also the affordability piece of a group cost where it's more affordable than for the professionals in this space. So that's, again, a concept that I'm starting to put out there and formalizing that, what looks like a call for proposals or an invitation to collaborate. So I'll get with you, or I'll look over your stuff, Coralie, and see what you've already said and how that could fit in, because it would be good for me, I think, to have an integrated thing rather than a piecemeal. So it'd be awesome if we could, a bunch of us, like a cohort, go along a journey and learn together rather than, one individual taking a piece over there and a piece over there. It's good to know what pieces exist, because maybe that can form part of this cohesive learning journey, and not looking for it to be too in-depth. The original property development course I saw was only a day. And I think with an alternative, it could be an extra day or an extra 2 days. So that's keeping it, fairly doable and hopefully affordable. So those are the projects I have for this Women Revolutionizing Housing. So what I wanted to do was get us connecting initially before we go into Jackie's project. The card says powerful dilemmas. And what it says here is, bring me dilemmas, ruffle me up, challenge me, stretch me, and empty my cup. Is there a dilemma at the moment, and how might it be powerful? What might it bring forward for discussion? What might it light up? What might it strengthen? A core or open a door? I just wanted to share a resource that I thought was really helpful. There we go. In terms of intentional community, this is an interesting consultant that has started this group called Community Finders. She has been working with the Foundation for Intentional Community for a number of years and has created this blog where she sends out helpful information on a regular basis. And if you'd like to subscribe, it's been quite valuable. This is one of the things she sent, which I thought you might like to check out. I can send a link to this, which is the best books about intentional community living. I won't go through all 48, but just to tell you that there's these categories that she's put them into, ones that are newly released, the reasoning for why this is an important thing, the intentional community movement, the importance of it, community living skills. So those are different than if we're just living in a house in a conventional neighborhood. We need to be able to get along a lot more regularly and a lot better. For anybody creating or wanting to live in an intentional community, it's really important to have a self-growth mindset and learn the skills. So there's lots of books dedicated to that, how to build a community. If any of you are in that concept phase, these are books written about how to actually go about it, the steps needed, and examples of communities, how they've started, and then how to find your community if you are looking, the kinds of questions you want to be asking of yourself and any communities you might like to join. And then there's real case studies. So yes, wanted to make that available. I'll go ahead and copy that into I'll put that into the chat. I put the link to the books in the chat. And then just to say that she does have a program, and I'm yet to look into it, so I don't want to speak to it quite yet, but I will look into it. It's $50 a month. It's called the Community Founders Network, where she hosts speakers and having lots of tips and tricks for those who are in the process of working from concept into feasibility and then into making it happen. So my thought was looking at this, whether those of you who put your hand up that said, yeah, I'm moving something from concept into feasibility, might like to form a group together and join as a unit. That's an initial thought that I had. I'll do more research into what that would entail, how we could share something like that rather than each one of us spending that money individually. But yes, that's another resource. That was it in terms of my announcements. Is there anyone else who has an announcement before we jump into hearing about Jackie's project? And then we're going to do a mastermind around that. So anyone have any other announcements that's important for us to know? Okay, if you do ever want to make an announcement to this group, you can always email me, and I send out newsletters or emails, and you can just give me your thing to pass along. Now, the way we're going to work this, we're ending within half an hour. So Jackie's prepared a concise presentation. We're going to listen and then give strategic questions to Jackie, which helps inform her thinking around what's possible. Has she thought about this or that? It's meant to be strategic questions and perhaps any advice if she's interested to take advice. I'm going to hand this over to you, Jackie. Take your mute off, and the share button is at the bottom for you to share your presentation.
Thank you. Let's see if I can manage this. Okay. I'd like to introduce everyone to Oakdale Farm, which is my family farm. We've had it for 50 years. My parents have passed away, and it's now a matter of trying to find out, what do we do with this property? So they've poured their lives into this property, and I have a real interest in what we can do with it. My parents practiced biodynamic farming before it was fashionable and taught me about the land and how healthy land creates healthy people. Living like that is both a privilege and a responsibility. It's trying to work out what to do with this property. Society is in crisis at the moment, where everyone's feeling well, not everyone, but there is an awful lot of loneliness and depression and sadness around. And so I guess for me, it's becoming a bit of a major quest in how, how do I answer this whole thing of what to do with the land? So at the moment, my siblings and I, we're all sort of in our late 50s and 60s and thinking what's next regarding retirement, lifestyle, affordability. And the easy thing to do, we could sell the farm and move on, but it's not really sitting right with me. I believe there is an opportunity here to create something meaningful in the co-housing space. My biggest dilemma is probably not what to do, but who do I need to make it happen. We have this land, it's 16 acres. I can see it housing 15 to 20 homes, maybe clustered on 4 to 6 acres of flat land as you come into the property, and then retaining 10 acres for productive farming and public amenities. At the moment, when you think what's co-housing, I can see shared spaces, that collective use of amenities, and the property already has this big house. It has studio. It's got a pottery kiln, large veggie garden, and water on the property. And so the idea is a sustainable sort of multi-generational village where people of all ages live, grow food, work creatively, and share in the rhythms of life. A community land trust, I'm wondering if it's a good model for this. Rural zoning is tricky. At present, the property is actually mixed rural. It means there's no subdivisions allowed, but there is provision for housing. If you were producing something on the property, you could have a couple of houses for workers. You're allowed to create income producing businesses such as education, tourist accommodation, things like that. How do we turn it into co-housing when our councils have a set plan that you can't do anything with rural land? We're 5 minutes from a newly formed suburban village in Clevedon. I'm 40 minutes from the city, and picturing a property that is not just for retirees. We have plenty of retirement villages being built. I think you really need that mix of generations for a really, well, you don't have to have it, but I think it's ideal. So how do we create that out of this property? Have shared gardens, communal meals, workshops. I'm looking for an economic model that can create a legacy, for the land, but also a modest income for my family, insofar as I have 2 other siblings who own the property. So it's a matter of convincing them that this is a good idea. I'm basically looking for what is a good model. I think the Land Community Trust is an interesting one. And I'm really looking for the people that can help me turn this into something. It'd be very easy just to sell it, but it does seem a waste of a very attractive property 40 minutes out of Auckland City.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, we've got about 10 minutes to ask some strategic questions about taking this, what it sounds like a fantastic piece of land with concept and opportunity, but the stumbling block sounds like it's the planning regulations. And so it's really sounds like, yeah, there's probably a lot of other questions to be asked, but it sounds like planning is the major thing. If you can get over what's allowed there, then you go into the next set of questions. One question that I have is if it's registered, again, I don't have any planning background, but if it's registered either as a campground with permanent long-term, I know that they're doing that in this area anyway. There's lots of long-termers in the campground now. If one is registered as an educational entity, whether that also provides for a certain amount of housing for folks in that education space. You mentioned around farm and whether if people are buying in, could it be a teaching farm? Could it be a bit of mixture of both? It seems to me that there might be some planning designation for the fact that you want to be able to produce on that land and you want people to be learning and sharing that outward, that there possibly could be something that allows that under those purposes.
I think Melanie wants to say something.
Yep.
I used to live in Kawakawa Bay, a subdivided property in Kawakawa Bay. That's how I got here. I thought Zola's idea of the friends living thing would be like perfect for that, and sort of know how tricky the council can be, and the campground permit as well that could allow extra tiny buildings. And where's it on? Is it on Ness Valley Road?
No, we're on North Road. We're halfway down. You know, the road between Clevedon Township and the beach.
Yes, yes. Yep. Okay. Yeah, there's a historical place there, isn't there? I can't remember.
So I'm wondering, Jackie, just again going along this strategic questioning, what have you done to date in terms of understanding the planning rules? I hear you speak to the prohibitiveness of them, but what have you done to understand what could be possible regarding the planning regs?
So I've spoken to a surveyor who was a friend of a friend, and he did a report. I'm running my business, Brookby Herbs, on the property, and he said you use that as the stepping stone to say you now need workers' accommodation, allows people to run the business. You could then probably, well, he came up with for $10,000, you could probably get permission for a second
a dwelling besides workers' accommodation, you mean?
Yeah, so you might get workers' accommodation and then maybe another 60 square meter or 90 square meter house type thing.
So sorry, what was the title of this person you were speaking to?
He's a surveyor,
A
I think, or
surveyor.
a planner. He may be a planner, actually.
So you've just spoken at this point to one person.
Yeah,
who's
I've
got
spoken to a couple of surveyors who say you
Okay.
can't subdivide, forget it. But
Right.
I was told that too.
So you've gotten the subdivision thing, that's kind of clear, but there's
Yeah.
lots of ways around that, as we were talking about those different designations, or whether it's held in a trust, whether that makes a difference, whether there's a unit title. I don't know. I don't think unit title is about subdivision. My other thought was, because I was just interviewing Lyndall Paris about the Narara Eco Village, and they spent many years going from concept to actually being able to buy the land. She said what was really winning for them was that they had a lot of gatherings on the land that they wanted to purchase. It had originally been on the market. It was taken off the market, but they still had ability to meet on the land to then dream into purchasing it when it would go back on the market. It was those community gatherings that they had of bringing people together that she said when it came time to buy the property, everybody was ready to, they raised $4 million to buy this property from about 25 folks because the years of relationship building had been established. The other card I drew, interestingly enough, was renewing relationships. I wonder what relationships you currently have and what relationships you could strengthen in your local area where you could get more folks championing this concept.
Well, I kind of had that vague concept, but thinking, is it too creepy You put it out there sort of as a Facebook page or some jolly thing saying, are people interested in the, joining this, coming and talking about the possibility of putting small houses and joint ownership in a piece of land down here.
After listening to Lyndall talk today, and I'll be sharing her podcast as soon as I can get it edited. She's also got a book. If you go onto the Narara Eco Village website, check her out, and then she says a free download's available of her book. She really does detail the steps that she did to create a really big movement behind the concept before they even had land. You're at the point where you even have land, so you're one step ahead. My feeling about this, particularly because I drew this card, you have a dilemma, you have a powerful dilemma, which is very good that we have this planning regulation which says in rural productive areas, we shouldn't have people, as if people are harmful to production. And yet those of us who look at permaculture and understand syntropic agriculture, which is that we actually, if we want to take out the petrol guzzling machinery and replace it with humans at a human scale, we need humans to be in rural areas living closely to the land. So that's a powerful dilemma. People not being seen as allowed simultaneously to production, and yet we know that to be false, that it actually is a good thing. And then around the relationship building, around getting this concept out in its phase that you have it at the moment, where you've done, I can see a lot of thinking, and you've drawn from a lot of examples that have got success, like the Ithaca Eco Village. They are teaching, they have agriculture, and they have their community. You've got a lot of powerful models that give people a sense of it's not a completely out of the box new idea. You're basically just building upon other successful models. So my feeling is, who else in your community that you can invite, use your land, invite them to the land, have some social fun thing that's connecting and an opportunity to share about this concept. And the relationships could help to then open doors that just having a meeting with a professional might not be able to open up those doors. So those are my questions to you. Who in your community and your wider would be strategic people to invite in? And I had another question as well. Oh, yeah. And what are the other unconventional ways that land can be shared that allow more dwelling on the property? So yeah, those are my. Who else? I wanted to wrap this up in the next few minutes. We have about 2 more minutes for strategic questions. Tonya.
Hi, Jackie. A few of us popped out and had a look at the property. We did a visual walkover analysis, reviewed the planner's report, had a quick look at the district plan. So Coralie, in terms of that dilemma of want and desire and vision versus current framework, that was all kind of set out. And if anybody's interested in more detail, Jackie has that document that could be forwarded to people, just because it's sort of that overview master planning high level stuff. I think it's quite good to get the big pictures. Jackie, one of your questions you've asked is, who do you need on board? I think that's an iterative process. One of the thoughts I had as you're talking, Zola, about suggesting community events is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Coralie, but there's an element of being visionary without selling something that can't be delivered. We need to be careful that we're not couching it in a language that then can't actually happen. So in terms of the who, maybe it's distilling some of that to figure out the kind of vision that can then be shared and outlined safely without it landing up on a rock in the middle of Akaroa Harbour. Sorry to be a naysayer, but it's that little steps. Absolutely get the big vision and the big picture, but it's understanding how you can couch that and frame that to bring people along and not lose them along the way, because we hit these roadblocks and they feel like an impasse because we've been too prescriptive with what we're aiming at. It's that push and pull thing. Hopefully that's making sense. So I guess my question is, and it's probably directed at Coralie, is how to navigate that distilling the thou shalt versus the big, hairy, audacious goals, and navigating that distilling process with the meeting of those two threads.
And it's very easy for someone to have a look at the plan and your site and say, oh no, you can't do that. But you do have to remember that in the planning space, there are very few things that you absolutely cannot do. There are things that will be more difficult than others, but there is almost always a process through. So unless you're looking at a prohibited activity, and there are very few of those, it's not that you can't subdivide, it's that it would be difficult to subdivide. And it's not that you can't have more than one house on the property, it's just you would need a resource consent. And that's the same with the subdivision. It's not that you can't subdivide. It might be tricky to subdivide, but you would need a resource consent. There are easy resource consents and then there are hard resource consents. It very much depends on the specifics of your site and the flexibility of the plan and what you're thinking. I think it's quite useful for you at this stage to be thinking very big picture, coming up with lots of different ideas about how you can use the site and how you can link it to the productive value of your rural land. Because you spoke of having an operating organic herb farm, is that correct?
No, it's a manufacturing business. We make herbal health products for horses and dogs. It's very small.
Right. Yeah. So having a business on your site gives you all sorts of different options. Having used your site for rural production in the past, it gives you an idea of what you can and can't do on the site as well. It changes things for you, but it puts you into the non-traditional development box, which always makes things more complicated. Your regular development pathways are not necessarily what you're looking at. You're looking at something that's a bit more bespoke and unique to you. So finding people that are flexible and willing to work in an iterative way to design something that works for you is important at this.
Thank you.
Could I just add one more quick thing? I was told I couldn't subdivide several times, and I spoke to a town planner at Auckland Council called Terry Smith. I have his phone number for you if you want to. I could email you. And I also used to be one of your customers, by the way, and my friend Daniela.
Cute.
Also, yeah, a good customer of yours. She went back to Germany.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, Terry Smith would be.
He's amazing.
Mm.
And is it Terry Smith? And then there's Terry Reid, the surveyor that I used.
Okay.
So melstroud@me.com. If you want to, I can email you later. Or
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for your strategic questions and support for Jackie's project. For me, it's just too great of an idea to say it's in the too hard basket. I've been told I can't do this and I can't do that. Jackie, the fact that you've got the land, it's got already a legacy of doing very good regenerative earthwork and the sense of community and the people who would love to live in such a place and be a part of that. It's about finding a way forward, and you could create. The nice thing about this group is that we're about sharing our journeys, and if we have a success, sharing that roadmap. So many people want to do what you want to do, but don't have a support system, and so they just fizzles out. So I think we have this opportunity to support this project, and it can be a great flagship for how we can do rural development better and organic living together. And, you know, there's a lot of great themes you've got that showcase how we need to be doing things differently. So yes, let's figure out ways to keep helping you to move this forward. So thanks for being willing to share that, Jack. I think a half-baked idea is perfectly fine and good enough to share. Just keep saying that these are the general outcomes that I would like, which you did state. There's multiple ways that could be gotten to. This is in its feasibility stage, so we are investigating all the options, and that's good enough. You don't have to have any other things sorted to share the idea at this stage. And I think bringing people to the land is a good idea. So I'm going to wrap us up with a final few words. Please do share about this network with others so that other women who are also sitting on important projects get the support they need.
Ola, sorry.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
just wondering if I can add my 2 cents into this.
Yes.
It would really be a shame if Jackie, with your land and what you've already done on it, to just sell it off, because I believe going forward, there'll be a lot of people interested in what you have in mind to do. I've been exploring this for a few years, as Zola know already. And considering that you have a business going, I'm presuming you have customers, a list of people familiar with what you do. Maybe just sharing that concept with your mailing list and see what comes back. Opening up to the public is great, but as a quick in, you can just send out an email to your mailing list and see the feedback you get. You might be surprised to see how many people are interested, and considering that you already have land and a community, okay? So you can start on there.
But I do want to wrap us up now. I'm going to share a final closing words. This is an anonymous saying, but I really like this one. For every woman who has ever been silenced, may we all rise and speak. For every woman who has ever been told you can't, may we all say, watch me. So thank you all again for coming. I look forward to seeing you next month. And some of you that will get together in person. I think Corlee and Julia and me and Trindy. And there's a few others in the network. And even Berta, you're not too far away. You're in Blenheim, that we can get together locally. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day. Touch. Okay, bye.